The views and opinions expressed are those of the individual and are not the reflections of any Grand Masonic body. The goal in this video series is to enlighten the minds of our viewers with Masonic education for the modern Freemason, wherever they may be. Take due notice thereof and govern yourselves accordingly. This is Modern Working Tools, today's tools for the modern Freemason. And here is your host, Brother Justice.
All right, let's get right into it.
An alchemical conversation.
Hello, I am Brother Justice, your host for Modern Working Tools, today's tools for the modern Freemason. And today I have a guest, Brother Jordan Kelly, who is also a member of our Masonic jurisdiction here in Illinois. And I believe his lodge is based in the state's capital in Springfield. And he recently did a tour during our annual sessions in Springfield, where he took brethren and gave them a tour around, the downtown area and showed them various Masonic sites and points of interest to Freemasons. And I thought it was really cool. So I would like to get him on this program to talk about the tour and just to go over a little factoids and anecdotes about Illinois Freemasonic history, and just a little bit about, his background, his lodge, the things that they're doing. They're doing great work, and I would like to have them shed light on some of the stuff they're doing. So, brother, I appreciate you coming on. Really, you're truly awesome, and I really enjoy connecting with you out in Springfield. You guys showed me a lot of love and support, and it was really cool to see you at the Lodge of Research as well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great. It's always fun to run into somebody the night before and then see him at the communication. Go, hey, look at that. Yeah. So glad we could get together. Thanks for letting me share this stuff.
No problem. Yeah. So you do have some slides, right?
I can go in and get stuff pulled up here, and this is going to kind of be, I guess you could call it a virtual version of the tour that I gave.
Right.
This was one of our logos. I had some wonderful help with some of our local brethren and their wives, actually, that are in graphic design. They did some phenomenal work for us.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
There's a lot of things that they did that were great. If you come next year, not you, but if any brethren want to come next year, they'll get a copy of our handout. It's top-notch stuff. So I want to thank them. But anywho, we titled this "Footsteps of a Mason." Pretty generic, but we wanted it to just kind of be, hey, this is the steps people walked on these grounds. And a lot of times in Springfield, if you've ever come into Springfield, it's all Lincoln all the time.
Right.
And President Lincoln was a great man, and everybody always talks about, well, this is where Lincoln stepped. And I said, well, yeah, there's probably a lot of other cool things as well. And so we just put some work in. Me and one of our newest brethren of St. Paul's 500, my lodge, Andrew Friend. This was really his brainchild, and him and I put some stuff together. And anyway, here we are. So, all right. Well, I'm just going to kind of get right into it then. I'll give you guys some background on just the lodges in Springfield. So there were originally 5 lodges in Springfield. You have Springfield Lodge 4, the 4th oldest lodge in the state. Central Lodge number 71. And now they've since moved, and they are a member of Chatham Central Lodge. I wish I could remember their number, but anyway, they were original Springfield Lodge. Tyrian number 333. St. Paul's 500, that's my lodge, and then Central Lodge number 3, the Prince Hall affiliate lodge here in town. Anyway, we're all still very close and operate very tightly with each other, and we all have our different histories and different strengths, which I think is what makes Masonry cool in its own. So, anywho, I'll kind of tell you little stories about different places and different guys in those lodges as we go along. The first stop, if I can get this to go, okay. This is the old state capitol. Now, the old state capitol is currently under construction. I took this picture 2 days ago. So as you can see, it's under construction. We moved the capitol from Vandalia, Illinois, to here in 1840. This was built in between 1837 and 1840, while Brother Joseph Duncan was the worshipful master. Well, he was a past master of Hiram number 8 in Brownsville, Illinois, but he was the governor at the time when they moved the capital to Springfield. A little soft spot for us in St. Paul's 500, the last Secretary of State to hold the office in this building was Brother Sharon Tyndale. Here, I got a picture of him right there. So here's Brother Tyndale on the right. Now, he was Secretary of State from 1865 to 1869. And one of his most notable accomplishments was redoing of the state seal here. And it's a little pixelated, so I'll talk you through it. But one of the main things that he wanted was our state motto, which is state sovereignty, national union. He wanted to flip it and be national union, state sovereignty. This was during the time of the Civil War, felt, needed more national unity than states' rights kind of deal. They did not let him do it. They said, no, we've got to keep it the same. So as you can see, what he did here was state sovereignty, which is upside down, twisted around, national union. So when you read it on the banner, it is in the order that they wanted, but he made his own little twist and still had it to where national union was not only above, but also right side up. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. He found a way to make things work. Interesting piece about Brother Tyndale. He was sadly murdered early morning in 1871, right outside of his home, and nobody ever knew who did it. We'll talk about some other 1871 stuff just with Illinois Masonry in general, but that to me is it's a fascinating thing. He was a Secretary of State, past master of 500, and was just murdered, and nobody knows why. It kind of tells you the difference in times too, I think.
Similar parallel with Meriwether Lewis. They believe he committed suicide, but we don't know. He is believed to be one of the first, or the first Royal Arch Mason to step foot in Illinois soil. And supposedly, we don't know for certain who the first Master Mason was, but his name escapes me. He was a general, I believe, under Andrew Jackson. He was a land purveyor. I forgot his name, but he was a well-known Freemason. They believe he was the first to step foot in Illinois soil, but it's not definitive. But it's still interesting. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it's I think a lot of these things we see just in our day-to-day life, or at least I do, maybe because I live here in the capital. But you see the state seal in a lot of different places, and I don't think a lot of us realize, hey, there's Masonic background to that, and there's some real impact, I think. So, okay, right next to it, you can see that's the same picture of the old state capitol, but kind of shifted over here. You can see the Myers building. The Myers building, or Myers Brothers building, it's a little zoom in there. Their father, well, the father of the Myers brothers was, I got to look up his name real quick. I had it and then I lost. Morris Myers. He was a German immigrant, moved to Athens. I would call it a small town just north of here, and opened a department store in 1858. He moved it to Springfield in 1865. And when he passed away, he gave the building to his sons, Albert, Julius, and Lewis, who were members of Springfield Lodge 4. They had this menswear store that stood on this corner. They financed a building, a 5-story building in this location in 1900. It burned down in 1925, and they built this other building that's now here. And I'll go back and see it's a little bit more than the 5 stories. It's a full store. Built that up in 1926. 1 year later, they had this whole building built. And it operated as a department store till 89, actually. And now it's just office spaces and things like that. But it still has the Myers brothers on it. And, we're real proud of that.
Another parallel is, a lot of fires have destroyed our history in Illinois Freemasonry. The Great Chicago Fire, even the Grand Lodge, a lot of their early records were destroyed by fire, I was told. So,
well, and that's why I went on and skipped ahead to this one. Funny enough, if you can see here, this Masonic Hall plaque downtown. One thing that our city's done is this looking for Lincoln stuff. As I mentioned before, they're Lincoln hotspots. But they really just did historical hotspots. What I really appreciated here was they talk about us. Masonic lodges were among the most important local social institutions of Lincoln's day. I would argue that they still are, whether they get overlooked by the general public or not, but still are one of the most important. This Lincoln Square is where our lodge building was held, and it burned down in 1871. Oh, 1871, the same year of the Great Chicago Fire, the same year that Sharon Tyndale was murdered, we lost all of our records. So all of the Springfield lodges lost all of their records in 1871, as did the Grand Lodge, as we know, from fires. Lots of interesting stuff was happening in 1871, especially Masonically. So I didn't know that until I started doing the research on this. I was like, wow, that's interesting.
And then, you know, the Grand Lodge of Illinois, during that time, in the proceedings, you can read it, they put together a relief committee for the Great Chicago Fire, and D.C. Krieger, past Grand Master and former mayor of Chicago, he helped raise $90,000 for the aid and relief of victims of the Great Chicago Fire. And the Grand Lodge of Illinois awarded him with the past master's jewel. It was a costly jewel appropriate to a past Grand Master. And to this day, our Grand Masters still in honor wear this jewel. It's a beautiful jewel, but yeah, deep history for sure.
Yeah. We'll go down the road a little bit. See, this tour is so much nicer this way and faster because I don't have to walk to a half mile down the road. So the state of Illinois Armory. Now, so we've got the Armory right there. It is just right by the old state or by the current state capitol, and we'll kind of go there here in a second. The thing that I like to point out here, and I'll give you a different view of the same building just from a different side. I think that's a really nice picture. When President Lincoln was elected, Worshipful Brother Thomas Mather, was the adjutant general. I can't ever say that word right. Adjutant general of the state of Illinois, just meaning he was in charge of what is now our National Guard at the state level, but at the time it was the state militias. He was sent to Washington, D.C. to investigate a plot to murder Lincoln before he was even president. So Lincoln handpicked Brother Mather here to go there, to go to Washington, D.C. And again, he already had some ideas that something was up before he even took office. And this was the gentleman that he trusted to go there.
Wow.
Now, this brother, Thomas Mather, was born and passed in Simsbury, Connecticut. While he was an Illinois resident, Illinois Mason, he was born and passed in Connecticut. Let's see, I don't want to get ahead of myself. There was another man, also named Thomas Mather, who was a couple of years older than him, that owned the hill that our current capital now sits on. It was this brother's uncle, I believe actually maybe great uncle. Brother Tim Thomason from up in your area did some genealogy research for me and found the connection there. And we believe that Mr. Mather was also a brother. Now, he was a resident of Kaskaskia when Kaskaskia was the capital of the state, and when Western Star Lodge, which is now in Champaign, but when Western Star Lodge down there was founded. I believe I even have some confirmation, but I don't want to just say that for sure without double checking it. But there's a lot of just interesting, again, connections and ties even throughout generations. But that Brother Mather was also born and passed away in Simsbury, Connecticut. Same with this guy. So, he said, oh, that's way too coincidental to not be tied together. So,
wasn't the Worshipful Master Shadrach Bond of Western Star? He was also the first governor of Illinois.
Yeah, he was the first governor and the first Grand Master of Illinois. And I believe he held those simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. And that was of the first Grand Lodge of Illinois, as many probably know. We have two, well, not two Grand Lodges. Yeah.
The William Morgan affair and the anti-Masonic political party kind of, put a damper on Freemasonry in Illinois. And the second Grand Lodge didn't get restarted up again until 1840. So
yeah. So now we're going to switch over to the current state capitol. And I don't know how well you can see those there, but we do have Brother Sharon Tyndale, as I mentioned, was the Secretary of State. I'm kind of trying to highlight that. Oh, he's the third name down. But this cornerstone, and again, I don't think you can see it because of just, oh, there it is at the very bottom, laid by the Masonic Fraternity, AD 1868.
I see it, yeah.
So that was laid by our Grand Lodge at the time.
Wow.
And the Grand Master at the time was Jerome Gorin. He has a hall named after him in Decatur at Millikan University, just 40 minutes down the road from us, just to the east of us. But Millikan University has a whole hall named after most worshipful brother Gorin. So this stone, this thing is so fascinating to me. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. This stone was pulled from quarries in Hamilton, Illinois, and it was said to be of low quality. Okay, I'm not a yeah, I'm only a speculative Mason. I'm not a practicing Mason, so I don't know what low quality is, but I'll take their word for it. I believe it has something to do with these giant cracks here. So what had happened is they picked this stone up. Let me back up real quick. Inside the stone, because this was the cornerstone, they laid inside of it the state charter that came from Virginia.
Wow.
Photographs of distinguished men of the day, and samples of some of the industries such as corn, a whiskey, bottle of whiskey from P.L. Howlett's distillery in Riverton. Riverton is just not even 20 minutes north of here, just kind of by Athens, the town I mentioned earlier, as well as a watch from Elgin, an Elgin watch, which that's a little bit further north of here.
That's here in Barrington. That's where our charter comes from, Elgin Lodge.
Wonderful, yeah.
Yeah.
So these things were placed inside of the cornerstone. The cornerstone was removed because it was of low quality. It literally wasn't supporting it. So they brought in a new stone from Joliet. And this one was gone. Don't know what happened to it. We didn't know what happened to it. Let me rephrase that. In 1871 is whenever they took this out. In 1885, 14 years later, they found it. It was just buried deep underground. They just buried it. And so they were doing some renovations and they buried it. They brought it back up, and for some reason they didn't display it then. They buried it again, this time under the front steps of the Capitol. Wow. And this was in it would have been 1885. It wasn't found until, I think I got a picture from the news article. It wasn't found until 1944. They were doing some reconstruction of the Capitol steps, and they found this, and they were just like, whoa, what is this thing? So it was lost, found, lost again, found again, and now it sits right here outside, just on the corner. You can't see it, but it's right where these cars are, and so now that's where it is.
It's like the Master's word of
Hiram. Yeah.
But for those who don't know, this is not uncommon for them or for the Masons to have a cornerstone ceremony whenever a building or monument is erected to the public. Sometimes we put little mementos in there, little keepsakes in there, corn, wine, oil, charters. But this is a very interesting story. Thank you for the photos and sharing that.
So we also have, if you see, the second to last name there is Robert Ingersoll. Now, I don't know this Mr. Ingersoll, but it is speculated that he is the sole reason why this was buried, because he was a suspected, not even a confirmed, he was a suspected atheist. And this wasn't a Masonic deal. This was just a state deal. It was so frowned upon to be an atheist at that time that they didn't even want his name anywhere on this. So they hid it from the public.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned that there's an Elgin watch in there, because if anyone who knows the history of Elgin, our lodge kind of split up. So essentially you had the executives of the watch factory, and they also shared the lodge with the linemen, the line workers of the lodge. At one time, they kind of broke apart, and then our lodge became a part of that. And but yeah, Elgin has a very deep history as well with Freemasonry. In Northern Illinois in general, there's a lot of Masonic pioneers. And this is very interesting connection that there's a watch in there. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and even more interesting, in 1966, they were going to look for the original plans, like the blueprints for the state capitol, and they couldn't find them. And so they said, well, why don't you go check the cornerstone? We probably put them in the cornerstone. So they checked the original cornerstone, or not the original, sorry, the second one, the Joliet one, that's still there. Nothing. They opened this one up, and all they found was a couple of pictures and a bottle of whiskey. So we do know that bottle of whiskey was there. However, there were a lot of other valuable things, such as that Elgin watch, that somehow, somewhere, some way went missing. And my guess is probably through some of the movements, somebody happened upon some of these valuable things and said, oh, what do these guys care if I take this? So that's just a really interesting piece to me. They never did
Elgin
Finally.
Elgin made some very interesting Masonic watches. Like if a lot of the people who were members of the craft who were working at the factory, it was not uncommon for you to like make your own watch at one point or another or something like that. And if you look online, you see some beautiful Elgin pocket watches with Masonic insignia in it. Very beautiful. So if you ever get time to look on eBay, search Elgin Masonic watch, you'll find them. They're gorgeous.
Oh, wow.
I could
Fascinating.
I could see why he probably pilfered it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now here I'm going to look at the, and I'm going to get our faces out of the way here. This is our governor's mansion. This doesn't necessarily have its own Masonic history. However, John Van Osdol, now I don't know that he was a brother. However, he was the architect of this building and was also the architect of a myriad of Masonic lodges in the Chicago area. So while he built this, he did a ton of work in Cook County, specifically for Masons.
Oh yeah, it looks like the style, very Victorian era style. Yeah, you see a lot of those.
Yep. And it was renovated in the late 1800s. Now, again, I don't have strictly Masonic ties to it. However, the names of the architects all tended to be, they all shared the same name with a very prominent family of Tyrian Lodge number 333, which is one of our lodges here in town. Again, that's maybe some speculation more than actual Masonic history, or I still find it interesting. So, and you've got some stuff on different governors and things like that, though, correct? On guys that were Masons?
I have a list, and these lists were compiled through various volumes on Illinois Lodge of Research. So if you remember, if you're an Illinois Mason and you're interested in history, please join the Illinois Lodge of Research. You could view the past transactions and on PDF and read them. I did come across a list here. Let me pull it up here. So yeah, the following Illinois governors here were also Freemasons. I have Shadrach Bond, Ninian Edwards, William L.D. Ewing, Joseph Duncan, Augustus C. French, Joel A. Matson, and Richard Yates. And for Chicago mayors or Illinois mayors, I have Anton Cermak, Carter H. Harrison Jr., D.C. Krieger, Fred A. Busey, John Wentworth, William Hale Thompson, and also, infamously, Joseph Smith was a mayor of Nauvoo. Well, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you could go a couple hours on that.
yeah, and a lot of our counties were in fact named after notable Freemasons all over the world.
Oh,
I The list is really long. But I'll briefly, Bond County, Brown County, Cass, Clark, Clay, Clinton, DeKalb, DeWitt, Douglas, Franklin, Hancock, Jackson, Joe Davies, Johnson, Kane. That's my county. Kendall, Knox, Fayette, Lawrence, Lee, Livingston, Logan, Marion, Marshall, McLean, Mercer, Monroe, Montgomery, Morgan, Pulaski, Putnam, Randolph, Stark, St. Clair, Tazewell, Warren, Washington. Even the Illinois township Evanston was named after Dr. John Evans, a Freemason out of Chicago. Just so much history
wow.
here in Illinois connecting with Freemasonry.
Yeah, and things that we don't, like you said, or like we mentioned, don't even recognize or realize that it's there, but it's all around us. There's
Right.
probably some symbolism to that. We
Yeah.
also do have a Pike County, but I'm sure it's not named after our guy. Well, anywho, so all right, Annie, again, the governor's mansion, while it's not necessarily Masonic, thank you so much for sharing that, because that, I mean, that, like I said, if anything, ties it right on in. Now, one of our local Masons was this gentleman here, Vachel Lindsay. Now, Vachel Lindsay was a poet. He was known as the Prairie Troubadour. So he wrote poems that were supposed to be sung or performed in what he considered higher vaudeville. So, you got the higher and lower aspects of it, and just a little bit higher class. Now, Brother Lindsay here, born and raised, well, he wasn't born and raised here necessarily, but his family bought this home when he was very young. Now, his parents were very, very religious. They wanted him to become a doctor. He went and studied the sciences at the time, that's what they called them, at Hiram College or Hiram University. Oh, Hiram College in Ohio. interesting enough. He moved to Spokane, Washington, 1924, moved back here in 1929, 5 years later, and that's when he was raised in St. Paul's Lodge 500.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Brother Lindsay took his life 2 years later. Now, he had made such an impact, though, on just history, not even history, the culture of the time, and especially Springfield, that his home, his childhood home, and the home that he passed away in is preserved. It is a museum to him. And we also have a bridge that crosses over Lake Springfield that's named after him. And it's a beautiful bridge. Very few people have reason to go that far out of town, but if you do ever make it out to the south side of town, it is a wonderful, wonderful bridge. I mean, it sounds weird to talk about a bridge, but hey, we're pretty big into architecture, right? So anywho, Brother Lindsay, to me, it was just he wrote a poem, multiple poems about Lincoln. He was a big fan of Lincoln. He also wrote a poem about Johnny Appleseed, and I gave an education piece one time about Masonic connections to Johnny Appleseed, who I don't believe was a Mason, but my guys really appreciated that, and I tied in his poem, and you go, just like we said, hey, it all comes together eventually. So cool. Anyway, all right, we'll stop here at Obed and Isaacs. Now, Obed and Isaacs is a little bit more of a local place. That's a current place. As you can see, it's a microbrewery and eatery, as we call it.
Coincidentally, I had lunch there, and I didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
excellent.
Brother Obed Lewis, was born in 1812. He was a carriage and wagon manufacturer, and his carriage house is still here. So it's right behind this building. Now, this building was not his home. His home was on this spot, though, moved different things, left her all these different pieces. But his carriage house is still there, where he would do all that work. It's now where the beer garden is. They have a coffee shop on the other side that is a replica of what Obed's house would have looked like.
Wow.
Him and his family, very close friends with Abe Lincoln. He was raised in St. Paul's Lodge 500, April 22nd of 1879. And what I really love, his great-great-grandson is the proprietor of this business, Obed and Isaacs, named after his great-great-grandfather, Obed. And I won't name drop him because I don't know if he'd be wanting me to do that, but he is a 50-year member of St. Paul's Lodge as well. So not only do we have the history, we also have the generational tie, which I really love. And he's a great gentleman, serves us very well, both Masonically and food and imbibements. So the Hoagland Center for the Arts. This is another downtown hotspot. You drove down 6th Street, you've probably seen it. And most people nowadays, they just see it as this art thing. I mean, it's where we do plays and things of that nature. However, in 1909, if you can see the differences here, this gray section on the right.
Scottish Rite Cathedral, yeah.
Yeah, so this gray section here, plus just a little bit more, was this building here. And that was our lodge building from 1909 until 1960, when they built on this additional piece, this where now it says Masonic Temple and Scottish Rite Cathedral. And when they built that in 1960, it was to be, I mean, it just, well, here I think I've even got some inside pictures. There you go.
Wow.
It was a full set and everything. I've got a couple more. There's some brethren that were active then. You see, we got the consistory stuff going on. This was the Scottish Rite reunion, I believe, in 81 or 91. So this is a Scottish Rite reunion that happened then. One of our past masters around here from Springfield Lodge 4 was gracious enough to share these pictures with me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, just really cool stuff. In 2001, we moved from this building, sold it to the Sangamon County Art Society at the time. The Hoagland family bought it and really named it after themselves, and they've done wonderful things with it. It's a great place for arts and music and all kinds of things here in Springfield. So I'm glad that we can still have a little bit of ties back to some of those liberal arts and sciences.
Right. Things do like full circle. They come around, and there is ties if you can see them. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So one thing that I don't have any pictures of in here, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up. I'll go to our current stuff, but Prince Hall affiliate, Central Lodge 3. I don't have a ton of history on them. Not for lack of.
We could do a whole episode,
and that's okay.
On that.
However, one piece that I do want to mention.
Right.
Springfield had a bit of a contentious history in the early 1900s. We actually had some race riots in 1908, spurred by the white members of society of the city, actually, and they started attacking people. They were unhappy with different things. And unfortunately, the police, nobody really did anything. They let it happen. Again, none of us were around for that. It is unfortunate. However, the very first man that was murdered, but that was lynched in the race riots was Junior Warden William Donegan. He was the sitting Junior Warden of Prince Hall, Central Lodge number 3. And again, we don't realize the impact that those guys had and the things, again, history that's lost due to unfortunate events.
Right.
But that is one piece that we do have that, the impact on that. And these guys, it really speaks to these guys of the history that they have. And now it's even better because of the positive relationship that we have. We are so close. We go back and forth. We travel with each other, all kinds of things. So you've talking about coming full circle. And this is definitely in a positive way, right? That we've really, how far we've come.
Right.
And again, it's an unfortunate thing, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least bring that up. It's a piece of Springfield history, Masonic history. So anyhow, all right. Now, where we are today, this is, obviously we didn't walk our guys out here because this is a couple miles out west. When we moved in 2001, this is our new lodge building, so to speak, the full picture, but I want to get a little close up. This is our Masonic Center. It houses 2 lodges, Springfield Lodge 4, St. Paul's Lodge 500. It houses our Scottish Rite, our York Rite, Amaranth, 2 OES chapters, Rainbow Girls, Job's Daughters, and D. Malay.
Wow.
It is also where we have our Dyslexia Center. They do phenomenal work for kids with dyslexia all around Central Illinois, pretty focused in Sangamon County and the surrounding areas, but this place is always hopping. And, it brings me a lot of joy to see something that has our name on it, always having cars in the parking lot, other than when this picture was taken. But it does bring me a lot of joy to see, hey, while the lodges might not have the same influence that they might have had in the past. Maybe they do, but it is still nice to see, hey, we're having real positive impact in our community. And that brings me to our last slide here. A couple things that we've got going on around our area locally. St. Paul's 500, as I mentioned a couple times, that's my lodge. This last year, we formed a community engagement committee. Our worshipful master, Steve Zolzer, had good foresight and said, hey, why don't we put this together? And through some help that I gave him, along with our secretary, we came up with this community engagement committee, and really they've dialed in and been able to go just do things. I'm wearing our shirt right now, the same logo that you have. And it was stuff like that of, hey, why don't we put together, let's look the same, not so that we can, not that we want to conform, but so that way when we're out and about, people look at us and they go, oh, that's a thing. I recognize that stuff. What is that? Another thing that we've done is this capital area Freemasons. I've already mentioned we've got 4 lodges around here, and that's not even including all the tiny little towns. And we found that a lot of us, we were just pulling our efforts away from everyone. We said, why don't we bring ourselves together? So all of the small towns from all the counties that are connected to us, we come together, and whether it be, a lot of it was virtually whenever COVID was at the height of stuff and lodges were shut down. We were doing a lot of this kind of stuff, Zoom meetings, and we were able to keep our brotherhood going, even though we couldn't meet in person. And now we take it and we study ritual together. We study some more of the esoteric stuff together. We practice together. And then sometimes it's just, we grab dinner and hang out, and it doesn't always have to be in a lodge setting. So it's just really helped us grow together as individuals, to just one-on-one relationships, but has also helped our lodges grow. And people see us out and about and they go, oh, there's the Masons coming through. They know that it's happening nowadays. And, we're proud of it. And that's, I think, a big difference that's happened over the last few years. So.
Yeah, and that's the vibe I had received when I went there. People knew, like, all the Masons are in town. People were very cordial and very well received. And now you guys have the Facebook group on there too, right?
Yeah, so we have a Capital Area Freemasons Facebook group, and that is honestly, it is a closed group. And when I say closed, I'm talking from the public. So it is an invite only. That's not to say that we're exclusive. We invite any Masons in the area that we know. But really what it's for is a place that guys can be comfortable and feel really engaged. We keep the group
Right.
small.
Right.
Many of these Facebook groups, what we find is non-Masons in them, and that's okay, but it makes some guys feel a little less comfortable talking about certain things. Of course, nothing virtual is tiled, including this. However, we really want guys to feel comfortable sharing and asking questions and sharing thoughts that they have that sometimes might even get frowned upon inside of their stated meeting. They might want to ask a question, go, oh, I don't know if I can ask that. But we have a really tight-knit community of just very sharp guys. And while it says capital area, we've got guys from Missouri, Indiana, Milwaukee, a handful of guys from up in Chicagoland area, some in Southern Illinois. We really span a wide area, but we are focused here in Springfield and how we can help make our capital area better. So.
I noticed you guys got some special camaraderie going on down there, and I caught wind of that. I was like, wow, these guys are really passionate about what they do. So I had to get you on here, definitely tell your story, because I don't make it to that part of the state ever. That was my first time ever visiting Springfield.
Really?
Yes. So I would like to keep coming out annually and just visiting you guys. And our state has tons of notable Freemasons, Masonic dignitaries. We could go on and on. But two interesting brothers I would like to mention, just because the history got me all riled up. But past Grand Master John Corson Smith, he was a Civil War general.
Oh.
He was a member of Miners Lodge in Galena, and his mentor was Worshipful Brother Eli S. Parker, who was the master of Miners Lodge in Galena. Brother Eli was Ulysses S. Grant's secretary. So when they drafted the surrender papers for Robert E. Lee, he was there. He was on the front lines right then and there. And he has an interesting quote. I'm paraphrasing. I can't say it how I seen it on the documentary, but apparently Robert E. Lee tells everyone in the room, hey, look there's a real American in the room, because he was a Native American. And Eli S. Parker tells Robert E. Lee, today we're all Americans. And I thought that was a very powerful statement from a brother Mason. Lots of history here, but I really appreciate this little talk. We definitely have to do another one on Prince Hall, Freemasonry, the history here. We could do that for another time, but if you could definitely pass it along to some of the brethren out there, we could coordinate that. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. We've got, gosh, the talent that we have around here, I must say, it really is something else, whether it be the history. We've got phenomenal ritualists, and I'm very blessed to be able to, if I need a question or have a question or need an answer on something, my goodness, we've got a lot of guys around here. So I'd love to be able to get you connected to whoever we need to. There, like I said, it's fascinating. I mean, I'll be honest, this really isn't my forte. I'm the Western Area Education Officer, and while that does have some aspect of history in it, most of my studies don't fall into that. It's more into the contemplative type stuff, some of those types of pieces. And just through this study and being able to rely on these resources, it's been so neat. And I've really gotten a much stronger appreciation for it. So I guess I say that to say, rely on your brethren that know other things, because you might think you're not interested in something, and then you go, oh, hey, that's really cool, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So.
And it looks good that a lot of younger brethren are taking interest in the history. This is something that, we have to pass on and cherish the legacy. When I went to the ILOR meeting, Lodge Research meeting, I saw a lot of young faces in there. I was like, wow, so we're definitely getting younger, and we're getting more interested in the history. And I also love esoterics as well. I'm big into all that stuff, but I'm also equally as fascinated by just the plain old history that we have. It's equally just as fascinating, and I would like to share more of that, both if I could. But I think the history is the good foundation that we should build off of. So this is definitely a great informative little presentation, Brother Jordan, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. If you have any last words or comments or shout outs to your lodge, That would be really cool to, hear some shout
Well,
outs.
yeah, no, I appreciate it very much. Shout out to St. Paul's 500, the premier lodge in Springfield. That's an inside joke between us and Lodge 4. We're all great guys. We all get along very well. But I will give actually a couple shout outs. Craig Kennedy, if he's a illustrious brother, Craig Kennedy shared a lot of information with me, as did my current treasurer, St. Paul's current treasurer, Kenny Shoemaker. And then, oh gosh, there's a handful of other people. Evan Dion did the photography for this stuff. We've got names upon names that I could shout out, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But anywho, I'm very blessed to be able to have the support that I have around here to be able to do the things that we can do. So again, thank you so much for having me on. This was great. I loved it. Anytime I can share, it's always fun. So thanks for being a good audience and asking questions. So.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I am Brother Justice signing off. Modern Working Tools, today's tools for the modern Freemason. Until next time, to be one, ask one. Peace. Take it easy, brother. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Until next time, to be one, ask one.